Welcome back to part two of our Forge Talks on the financial services industry. I'm joined by another very special guest, my good friend Arthur. Arthur, welcome to Forge Talks. It's great to have you on, my friend.
Thank you, Fraser. Good to be on.
I bet. And just give us a quick, very quick description of who you are and what you do within Forge Rock.
I'm the regional vice president for Eastern United States and Canada. I've been with ForgeTalks almost 3 years, and I lead a team of account executives across the United States and Canada that help our customers meet their security goals and requirements.
Amazing. And so, Arthur, based on your history and your wealth of experience within the industry, can you tell me a little bit about how you see the financial services industry in the US and in Canada? How are they being impacted at the moment by some of our global trends?
Yeah, absolutely, Fraser. First, I want to say that my good friend Nick Cayley covered some trends he's seeing in Europe, and I would certainly recommend everyone that hasn't listened to it to go back for Rock Talks and actually listen to that. From my vantage point as somebody that's actually worked in financial services in both the retail sector as well as the commercial sector, and also that's someone that, my team has also helped financial services meet their security and identity requirements. I've got I'll certainly share my vantage points based on that experience. So there are three main trends that I'm seeing in the financial services industry right now. And it's really the pandemic and the resulting change that it's impacting financial services. And number two, open banking, regulations and compliance. And three, the change in competitive landscape.
I mean, so you mentioned the pandemic, and I have not been shy about how much the pandemic has affected my life in the last couple of years. But interesting to hear a little bit more about how that has impacted the financial services.
So let's talk about brick and mortar. I can't remember the last time I visited my banker in New York City in Manhattan. So it's been a long time. So we've shifted as consumers, we've shifted the way we interact with our financial services companies. So I now use mobile applications, on my phone or online banking, to do the transactions that I normally had to do. And if I need to talk to my banker, I just pick up the phone and call my banker. So we've seen a shift, as banks have moved away from about 80-90% of their, consumer transactions and, business move from 80-90% from a branch to predominantly 90% or more of their business now being done through online.
It's crazy.
So, big, huge shift. So, and for a while during the pandemic, the branches have closed in essence. They weren't open to doing that. So consumers have had to adapt, and the same financial services have had to adapt to the new reality, which is online. So it's driven a lot of the consumer and financial transactions to be more, online or remote rather than in person. So, and again, this trend has accelerated the need for modernization and really has accelerated digital transformation for all segments of financial services, whether they be banks, trusts, credit unions, or insurance, firms. Now, some of the things that we have already seen is that, some of the financial services had a really good foundation, a technical foundation, and were able to handle the sudden growth or shift in online traffic, still delivering, frictionless user experiences. And in essence, we're able to pivot and handle this shift that we're seeing. On the other hand, we're seeing also traditional banks that are struggling, trying to adapt to the new reality, trying to adapt to online banking, mobile banking, phone banking, and so forth. And that's the paradigm that's happening right now, is that shift that we're seeing. This shift in consumer behavior is here to stay. It's not a fad. This is our path forward. This is the new normal that we're seeing. And the return to traditional bank branching is unlikely. Not be 80-90%, probably 10 to 20%, maybe a little more, but back to the traditional banking transactions, that's going to take a little while to happen.
Sure.
So furthermore, this is driving an acceleration of digital transformation investments, as a means to, maintain the revenue stream, create new revenue generation, and cost optimization reduction. So, where it used to take, a lengthy amount of time, years to get financial services companies to actually adopt a digital transformation or a modernization, it's now the pandemic has accelerated that.
Sure.
So, Fraser, let me talk to you about the second key trend that we're seeing in financial services, and that's really around open finance, regulation, and compliance. So, as you know, open banking and open finance initially started in Europe a few years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and it has become really a regulatory requirement with the goal of providing consumers with business choice and banking providers. So now, fast forward, open banking has made its way over to North America, to Canada and the US, and US banks are starting to adopt it as well. So, as a matter of fact, Canada was expected to pass a resolution in the near future to adopt open banking as a regulatory requirement. So we saw that initially in Europe, and we saw a lot of the banks start to adopt that. Now that's we're anticipating that is going to become a reality soon, where it will become a regulatory requirement. So in June of 2019, the Senate Committee on Banking in Canada and Trade and Commerce called for immediate adoption and decisive action from the government of Canada to adopt open banking and open finance.
Sure.
So, what this results in, Fraser, is it's forcing many of the banks, the traditional banks that were running legacy mainframe systems, to focus on modernization efforts, which includes modernizing their digital identity and access management systems. So, my team at ForgeRock helps banks, credit unions, and insurance companies in bridging from their legacy, archaic, older systems to a more of a modern, open, and cloud-based IAM service.
Perfect.
As for regulation and compliance, this, which is the third trend that we're seeing, this really spans both the consumer and workforce
Okay.
aspects. So let's talk about consumer first. So we're seeing, consumer regulations being adopted in protecting consumer privacy, or PII data. So we're seeing in the EU, it started with GDPR, and the US has, also followed and is really adopting more and more privacy regulations. We saw them at the state level with the California Consumer Privacy Act, in Nevada, and the State Bill 220, and Maine, the Maine Act to adopt the Privacy Act as well. And we also see that in Canada. So Canada adopted a similar type of consumer privacy protection, which is called PIPEDA. And it's the Personal Information Protection and Electronic Documents Act. And it's very similar to what the U.S. has adopted, which again is very similar to what Europe started with GDPR. So financial services need to adapt and to provide this level of consent and privacy for their consumers.
Yeah, it's so true that you see regulations around consumer, consumer data and things like that are just really taking off these days, and they seem to be cropping up everywhere. But you mentioned workforce as well. I'm interested to hear how employees of financial services are impacted.
Well, they're impacted in several ways, Fraser. First, we talked about the shift from brick and mortar to the online banking. So
Sure.
the workforce themselves, I mean, that employees are not going to the branches anymore. They're working remotely. So again, that speeds up the acceleration of modernization. So banks and financial services have to allow their employees to service their customers through a remote workforce. So folks are working out of their homes to be able to telephone banking and other services as well. In addition to the impact in the labor market, as we saw banks transition from a brick and mortar towards online banking, financial services had to provide a enable their workforce to assist the customers from their homes. So so banks being heavily regulated, there's a need to ensure that the workforce also has the right level of access and not too much access. So and that's a big problem from a compliance and audit perspective for financial services companies, as they typically, over time, when an employee starts working for a financial service company, their entitlements snowball over time as they work, year over year, month over month, and their entitlements grow over time. And that entitlement is never right sized. It's never brought down to the most needed, because employees can change different roles and responsibilities, can get different access. So what we have seen is financial services rush and adopt a governance solution. But traditional governance solutions are somewhat flawed in design. And what I'm personally seeing is that there's too much bad data out there, too many entitlements for the roles. So we need a solution around a kind of a role management or role rationalization and remediation aspects. So, and the artificial intelligence learning has made its entry into that, and is really the solution to this growing snowball effect that we're seeing, to be able to get that snowball into the ice cube that it needs to be into your drink and so forth.
Yeah, totally. Is this something that autonomous identity helps out with?
Absolutely, and that's why we created autonomous identity. Again, traditional governance solutions were flawed by design. It was bad data in, too much data. It created a lot of rubber stamping, and we needed to rationalize that. We needed to apply artificial intelligence, machine learning, to be able to sift through all that entitlement and right size it to that individual role.
Yeah, and if you missed the last episode of Forge Talks on autonomous identity, make sure to check that one out as well. It's a good one. Anyway, don't let me interrupt you. Carry on, Arthur.
No worries. And finally, the third trend that I wanted to discuss is really the change in the competitive landscape, which is driving the acceleration or the ascent of fintechs and neobanks and third-party market disruptors. Mm-hmm. So you and I may be very well familiar with the traditional banks that have primarily operated through physical branches. And then we saw online banking, which, have a small number of branches, but they're predominantly committed to the online banking experience. And we've seen many examples of that in the US and Canada and in Europe as well. Mm. However, there are new challengers to the traditional and the online banks as well. And they're called, in essence, neobanks and fintechs. And neobanks are, predominantly do their services through a mobile application, and they do not have any physical branches whatsoever. Mm. And we're also seeing fintechs, and those are, financial disruptors are coming in, and they're based on providing financial services through technology. And a really good example of that is Apple. I mean, we know Apple. I'm a Apple guy here. I got my Apple Watch, I've got my Apple phone, I got my iPad, my Mac, and so forth. But now we're seeing, Apple Bank enter into the financial services market with offering, credit cards, the Apple Card. Sure. And again, it's a financial disruptor kind of things. So traditional technology companies now, or technology-based solutions, are coming in and disrupting that market. And that's driving an acceleration towards modernization as, traditional banks, online banks have to compete in that. So, and we have helped several traditional banks, pivot and become online ready, mobile ready, and transition to more digital based services.
I think there's definitely some significant global trends there, and it all makes sense. It feels like kind of an exciting, but also, I guess, kind of perilous time to be a financial services organization. I wonder, beyond these big global trends, is there anything more regionally specific that you are noticing within the US and Canada?
Yeah, absolutely. We are seeing a large growth in cybersecurity and really cyber terrorism. So, cyber terrorism has become a major concern for our customers and financial services, as well as other industries and the government as well. So, you go on the web, pick up a magazine or read anything, you're always seeing some kind of cyber terrorism happening. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing quite a bit of that. And that is increasing. And we're also seeing an increase in identity fraud that is driving an increase in identity and access management solutions that provide that higher level of identity assurance.
Okay, and how does ForgeTalks help then? I want to know.
That's a great question, Fraser. And I lead a team of security and identity experts across the United States and Canada, and my team can help our customers, and we do it in a three-step approach. First, we work with our customers to understand their fundamental business and technology goals. And they could be threefold, whether it is a digital transformation to modernize their existing identity and access management solution that could be built on older legacy type solutions, and really reduce their exposure based on that, adopt new and open technology frameworks, and that help them meet the regulations. And integrate with newer technology solutions, from reducing fraud by adopting MFA solutions to identity proofing, behavior analysis, and leveraging AI and machine learning for autonomous access and predictive access and control. The second option that we engage with is really how to help them become more competitive. We talked earlier on about how financial services are facing increased pressures from neotechs and financial services companies that offer these online services to businesses and consumers, such as microloans or virtual credit cards to life insurance, property and casualty, and more. So in addition to these fintech pressures, traditional financial service companies need to adapt and shift in a pandemic reality to delivering on new digital revenue streams, reducing customer friction and boosting performance.
Sure.
And thirdly, protection. Organizations are facing the cybersecurity threats more than ever and need to protect from hackers from all over the world. Asia, Russia, Iran, and other areas where they operate in countries that they cannot be prosecuted or even found to be prosecuted with no fear of justice, making these hackers fearless and even more dangerous with no fear of repercussions. So, and again, secondly, my team works alongside our customers to understand their current state, what's working, what needs improvement, and tie it to performance-related metrics. And third, we assemble a cross-functional team that reviews the information we collected and make recommendations to help our customers meet their business and technical and security goals.
That's great. Well, it's good to know that ForgeRock is fighting the good fight and helping financial services companies to succeed, in today's world. I wonder, any parting thoughts before we draw our conversation to a close, Arthur?
Yes, Fraser. So again, to summarize, financial services organizations are demanding more advanced, modern, and open identity and access management capabilities. They need a complete platform that must be simple and secure in the face of existing complexity. And that is why all three analysts have recognized ForgeRock as a leader in the identity and access management space. We are the only one to achieve that designation. ForgeRock Identity Cloud helps us deliver deep security, massive scale, and strong business integration with predictable cost. So my team is here to help. Reach out to me, and we're happy to engage and help our customers meet their business, technical, and security goals.
Amazing. Well, guys, like Arthur said, if you work for a financial services organization and you want to take advantage of some of ForgeRock's technology, then please do get in touch. There's contact details on the screen right now. You can get in touch with Arthur or someone from his team. But otherwise, I'll just say thank you, Arthur, so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Fraser, for having me.
And thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.